Overall, Jabul Ruins is a pretty lackluster dungeon. There are some good things here. I like how the intro segment, after the foyer floor collapses, teases the boss to you. I like some of these puzzles that have you activating shock switches. I like the dark underwater section that makes both air and light a resource that you have to manage. But I think I would have preferred that they took a single idea, or even just a small handful of them, and fleshed them out in greater detail, because each one of these things is kind of a flash in the pan, or just a one-off thing. As it stands right now, I don't think I could put my finger on a single core dungeon mechanic or gimmick here, aside from it's a terminal-style dungeon. That ends up falling apart too once you realize that if you know what you're doing, you can skip almost the entirety of this dungeon, utterly breaking it apart. At least in the Divine Beasts of Breath of the Wild, you have to push all of the buttons. All you need to complete this dungeon is to scoop up the boss key from the northeast passage, and then make your way to the boss door. There's nothing stopping you from doing that and skipping the other 80% of the dungeon. It's a terminal-style dungeon where you don't even have to activate the terminals. I'm far from the only one to point this out, but to offer a counter to my own point, and a key piece of the argument that I think often gets omitted or glossed over, is that in order to do so, you have to know that that is an option. You have to have prior knowledge of where things actually are. Knowledge usually gained from actually doing the dungeon. So I'm sure most people didn't run into this as an issue. However, when you have the path to the boss key available so immediately, no matter how unlikely it is, it remains a possibility that this could end up being someone's experience in the dungeon, ruining it through the simple act of wanting to explore, something that is usually encouraged. So in the interest of being constructive, here's a couple of ideas that could have worked. These aren't original ideas either. I've plucked them all from other Zelda games, but I think these would work to fix the issues with this dungeon. One is that rather than a boss key, there could have been a giant mechanical lock that gets opened in segments by the 4 switches you have to press, just like the final trial in Breath of the Wild. You could also have a series of locked blocks or doors between the central room and the boss door, not unlike the lead up towards the boss of Key Cavern in Link's Awakening. Then, by spreading small keys throughout the dungeon, you make sure that players have to explore thoroughly.